The application takes 11 minutes to fill out, not because it's short. It's 47 fields, 6 pages, 3 file uploads, and a CAPTCHA that takes 4 attempts because the letters are distorted in the specific way that suggests the system was designed to prevent bots and has also, incidentally, been preventing humans. The application takes 11 minutes because the man filling it out is typing with the focus speed of someone who knows that every second of friction between a job seeker and a job is a second in which the job seeker considers closing the browser and trying somewhere else. His real name, is Darren Kavanaugh. He is 49 years old. He is the CEO of Loomis Financial Group, a mid-market financial services company headquartered in a glass tower on State Street in Boston that employs 2,200 people, manages $18 billion in assets, and generates $360 million in annual revenue. His corner office on the 31st floor has a view of the harbor that his real estate broker described, without irony, as worth the lease alone. The office has a mahogany desk, a conference table for 8, a private bathroom, and a coffee machine that makes espresso with beans imported from a small farm in Guatemala that the company's head of procurement sources personally, because Darren mentioned once 3 years ago that he liked Guatemalan coffee, and the machinery of corporate attentiveness turned this casual preference into a permanent line item. Darren built Loomis from a 2-room office in Quincy 23 years ago. He was 26, fresh out of a junior analyst position at a firm in the financial district that had treated him the way mid-size firms treat junior analysts, as a renewable resource, interchangeable, a body that fills a chair and produces spreadsheets and is replaced by the next body when it burns out or moves on. The managing partner at that firm never learned Darren's name. In 2 years of employment, the managing partner called him Dave 4 times, Dan twice, and the new guy for the entirety of his first 6 months, despite the fact that by month 3, Darren was producing the client retention analysis that the partner presented at board meetings as his own work. Darren left. He left with a conviction that would define every decision he made for the next 2 decades, that a company is only as good as the way it treats the person who just walked through the door. Not the person in the corner office, not the person on the board, the person with the fresh badge and the new shoes and the nervous handshake who is sitting in the lobby waiting for someone to say their name correctly and to mean it. He built Loomis around this conviction. The first hire was a receptionist named Inez, a woman from Dorchester who had been laid off from a bank and who came to the interview in a suit she'd borrowed from her sister. Darren hired her in 15 minutes. Not because the interview was short, but because the conversation was long and the job offer was immediate. Inez stayed for 19 years. She retired last March. At her retirement dinner, she gave a toast that Darren has replayed in his mind every day since. The first thing Darren ever said to me was my name, not "have a seat," not "tell me about yourself." He said, "Inez, thanks for coming in." He said my name like he'd been waiting to meet me. I stayed 19 years because of 15 seconds. 23 years later, Loomis employs 2,200 people. 23 years later, Darren does not know the names of most of them. This is not cruelty, it is math. A CEO who knew 12 employees by name in a 2-room office in Quincy cannot know 2,200 employees by name in a 31-story tower on State Street. The company grew. The names became numbers. The reception desk became a security checkpoint. The 15-minute conversations became structured interviews. The conviction that a company is only as good as the way it treats the person who just walked through the door is still printed on the wall. Whether it's still true is the question that brought Darren to a coffee shop on Newbury Street with a fake resume and a personal email address. Darren did not grow up with Guatemalan coffee. He grew up in Quincy, in a 3-decker on Billings Road, the 2nd floor, with his mother Constance and his older brother Arlo. Constance was a bookkeeper. She kept the books for 4 small businesses in Quincy and Braintree, working from the kitchen table on a calculator that was older than Darren and that made a grinding sound when it printed receipts on narrow rolls of thermal paper. She was precise. She was methodical. She balanced accounts the way some people pray, with ritual attention, with the faith that if you do the small things right, the big things hold. Darren's father left when Darren was 7. not dramatically, not the kind of leaving that makes a story, just the kind that leaves a gap. He moved to Florida. He sent checks for 2 years. The checks stopped. Constance didn't discuss it. She tightened the budget. She added a 5th client. She moved the calculator from the kitchen table to a desk in the corner of her bedroom so the boys could have the table for homework. And the desk was too small for the calculator, and her elbows stuck out over the edges while she typed. But she made it work because making it work was what Constance did. Darren went to Boston College on a scholarship, partial academic, partial financial aid, the rest covered by a work-study job in the university's finance office where he filed forms and processed reimbursements, and learned, in the specific way that you learn things by doing them rather than studying them, that the machinery of money is not numbers. It is people. It is the person who submits a reimbursement for a conference they attended because their department head told them it would be covered, and the person who processes that reimbursement and discovers that the department budget is empty, and the conversation that happens next, the human conversation, the one that the spreadsheet doesn't capture. He built Loomis from that understanding. Money is people. Financial services is not the management of assets. It is the management of trust. When a client gives Loomis $18 billion to manage, the client is not giving Loomis money. The client is giving Loomis their retirement, their children's education, their security, the mathematical representation of years of work translated into a number that sits in a database that is managed by 2,200 people that the client will never meet and that the client trusts because the company's name is on a building and the company's values are on a wall and the company says, "We see people, not just resumes." The name on the application is not Darren Kavanaugh. The name on the application is Neil Keane. The resume attached to the application is real, not Darren's resume, but a real resume built from real credentials, assembled by Darren and his chief of staff over a weekend with meticulous attention to the kind of candidate that Loomis should be eager to hire. Neil Keane has a bachelor's degree in finance from UMass Amherst. He has 8 years of experience in client services at 2 mid-size firms in Hartford and Providence. His references are real people, friends of friends, carefully briefed, who will confirm his work history if called. His salary expectations are market rate. His cover letter is professional, specific, and mentions Loomis by name 3 times. Neil Keane is, on paper, exactly the kind of candidate that Loomis Financial Group says it wants. The company's careers page, a page that Darren approved with language that the HR team drafted and the marketing team polished, says, "We believe in talent from every background. We invest in potential. We see people, not just resumes." Darren is about to find out whether any of that is true. The idea came from the numbers, not the revenue numbers. Those are fine, the company is profitable, the board is satisfied, the stock price is stable in the particular way that mid-market financial services stocks are stable, which is to say boring, which is to say exactly what institutional investors want. The problem is the hiring numbers. The time to fill an open position, 67 days. Industry average, 42. Application to interview conversion rate, 3%. Industry average, 8. Offer acceptance rate, 51%. Industry average, 69. The talent acquisition team, a department of 11 people on the 14th floor, is spending $430,000 a year on job board postings, applicant tracking software, recruiter commissions, and LinkedIn premium subscriptions, and the result is that 2/3 of their offers are rejected and the positions that are filled take 2 months to close. "We're hemorrhaging candidates," the CHRO told Darren in a meeting 6 weeks ago. A man named Wendell Cobb, who had joined Loomis 2 years ago from a tech company and who approached HR with the systems thinking of an engineer. If the output is bad, the process is broken. We post a role, we get 800 applications, we screen them through the ATS, and we end up interviewing 6 people. 6 out of 800. That's a 99.25% rejection rate. What's the ATS screening for? Keywords, degree requirements, years of experience. The algorithm scores applicants on a matrix, and anything below a 70 gets auto-rejected. The rejection email goes out within 4 minutes. The applicant gets a form email that says, "Thank you for your interest in Loomis Financial Group. Unfortunately, We have chosen to move forward with other candidates at this time. 4 minutes. That's all the time we give most people. 4 minutes, 4 minutes, and the algorithm is wrong about a third of the time. We had an internal audit last year, pulled 100 auto-rejected applications at random and had a human recruiter review them. 31 were qualified, 31 people who should have gotten interviews and instead got a form email in 4 minutes. Darren looked at the number. 31 out of 100. Extrapolated to 800 applications per role, that's approximately 250 qualified people being rejected by software per posting. Multiplied by the 63 roles Loomis posted last year, that's nearly 16,000 qualified candidates rejected by an algorithm that the company paid $200,000 to license. "I want to apply," Darren said. Wendell looked at him. "I want to submit an application for an open role through the normal process. No flags, no shortcuts, no special treatment. I want to see what happens to a qualified candidate in our system." Wendell paused. He was not the kind of man who paused for drama. He paused for calculation, the way engineers pause when they're running numbers in their heads. "If the ATS rejects you," he said, "that's a story. That's the point. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, because this story is about a CEO who applied for a job at his own company and found out that his company didn't want him." Monday, 9 a.m. Darren submits the application from a laptop at a coffee shop on Newberry Street, 3 blocks from the Loomis building, using a personal email address he created for the purpose. The role is Client Services Associate, an entry to mid-level position, the kind of role that Loomis hires 30 of per year, the kind of role that is the pipeline for the company's client-facing workforce. The salary range is $62,000 to $78,000. The requirements as posted are bachelor's degree in finance, accounting, or related field, 3 to 5 years of client-facing experience, proficiency in CRM software, strong communication skills. Neil Keane meets every requirement, 8 years of experience, more than the posting asks for. UMass finance degree, CRM proficiency listed specifically, cover letter that addresses the role's 3 key responsibilities by name. The application goes into the system at 9:07 a.m. At 9:11 a.m., 4 minutes and 18 seconds later, the rejection email arrives. "Dear Neil, thank you for your interest in Loomis Financial Group. After careful review, we have determined that your qualifications do not align with the requirements of this position at this time. We encourage you to apply for future opportunities that match your experience. Best regards, the Loomis Talent Acquisition." Team Darren reads the email. He reads it again. He reads the words, "after careful review," and thinks about the 4 minutes and 18 seconds in which the careful review occurred, which is not enough time to read the cover letter, let alone the resume, let alone the 8 years of experience and the UMass degree and the CRM proficiency and the 3 specific references to the role's key responsibilities that Darren wrote into the cover letter with deliberate precision because he needed the application to be undeniably qualified. 4 minutes, careful review. The algorithm scored Neil Keane and found him wanting. The algorithm, the $200,000 piece of software that 11 people on the 14th floor manage and that processes 800 applications per role and that rejects 99.25% of them with a form email that says, "Best regards," decided in 4 minutes that a candidate who meets every posted requirement does not align with the requirements. Darren closes the laptop. He walks 3 blocks to the Loomis building. He takes the elevator to the 31st floor. He sits in his chair, the chair with the harbor view and the mahogany desk and the Guatemalan espresso, and the chair feels different. Not physically different. The leather is the same leather. The view is the same view. But the man in the chair has just been told by his own company that he doesn't align with the requirements, and the requirements were written by a team that he oversees, processed by software that he purchased, and enforced by a system that he built. The rejection is not personal. That's the problem. The rejection is entirely impersonal. It is the product of a machine that does not know who he is and does not care, and the machine's indifference is the indifference of the company that the machine represents. He opens the laptop and logs into the ATS dashboard. The dashboard is a grid of metrics: applications received, applications screened, applications advanced, applications rejected, time to fill, cost per hire, source of hire. The metrics are green. Green means healthy. Green means the system is performing within the parameters that the vendor defined as optimal and that the talent acquisition team accepted as success. The metrics are green and the system is healthy, and the system just rejected a qualified candidate in 4 minutes. And the metrics say this is fine because the metrics measure speed and volume and cost, and the metrics do not measure the human being who opened a laptop at a coffee shop on Newbury Street and typed 11 minutes of hope into 47 fields and received, in return, 4 minutes and 18 seconds of algorithmic indifference. He pulls Neil Keen's application. The algorithm scored it at 64 out of 100. The threshold is 70. Neil Keen missed by 6 points. The 6-point deficit was generated by 3 factors. The application listed UMass Amherst rather than UMass Amherst, Eisenberg School of Management, which the algorithm flagged as an incomplete degree credential. The work history included 2 employers rather than 1, which the algorithm penalized under a job stability metric. And the cover letter did not include the phrase client relationship management, which the algorithm required as a keyword match, even though the cover letter included CRM software proficiency and client services and relationship building. 3 phrases that mean the same thing to any human reader and mean nothing to an algorithm that parses text the way a vending machine parses coins, by exact fit, not by value. 6 points. UMass versus UMass Amherst Eisenberg, 2 employers instead of 1. CRM versus client relationship management. These are the reasons that a qualified candidate was rejected in 4 minutes and 18 seconds. These are the gates between a job seeker and a job at Loomis Financial Group, and the gates are made of software that costs $200,000 and has the judgment of a label maker. If this story has touched your heart, take a moment to share it and subscribe to Untold Hearts, because sometimes the system that's supposed to find the best people is the system that's keeping them out. Darren doesn't go to HR yet. He goes deeper. He creates a second application. This time, the name is James Lennox. The resume is different, 5 years of experience instead of 8, a degree from a state school in New Hampshire, and a cover letter that is competent but generic. However, this cover letter has been optimized. Darren used the ATS scoring rubric, the rubric that Wendell shared with him, the internal document that the talent acquisition team uses to calibrate the algorithm, and reverse engineered the cover letter to hit every keyword. Client relationship management, fiduciary responsibility, cross-functional collaboration, stakeholder engagement. The cover letter reads like it was written by the algorithm itself, mechanical, buzzword dense, devoid of personality, and perfectly calibrated to score above 70. James Lennox scores an 81. James Lennox gets an interview invitation within 2 hours. Darren stares at the 2 applications on his screen. Neil Keen. 8 years of experience, specific cover letter, rejected in 4 minutes. James Lennox, 5 years of experience, generic cover letter stuffed with keywords, invited to interview in 2 hours. He holds both results side by side. The rejection email and the invitation email, sent by the same system, evaluated by the same algorithm, processed through the same pipeline. 4 hours apart. Same man. 2 different names, 2 different resumes, 2 completely different outcomes. The less qualified candidate with the keyword-stuffed cover letter was congratulated and invited. The more qualified candidate with the specific personal cover letter was thanked for his interest and told to try again. Darren thinks about Inez. The first hire. 15 minutes. No algorithm, no keyword matrix, no scoring rubric. A conversation. A woman from Dorchester in a borrowed suit who stayed 19 years because someone said her name. The company that hired Inez and the company that rejected Neil Keen are the same company. The same name on the building, the same values on the wall. The only thing that changed was the process. The process grew, the process was automated, the process was optimized, and somewhere in the optimization, the company stopped seeing people and started seeing data points, and the data points don't stay for 19 years because data points don't care if you say their name. The system is not finding the best candidates. The system is finding the candidates who speak its language. The language of keywords and rubrics and algorithmic thresholds that have nothing to do with talent and everything to do with a software product that was sold to the company by a vendor who promised efficiency and delivered a filter that catches the good fish and lets the bad ones through. He accepts the interview as James Lennox. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, costs nothing, and tells us to keep making stories like this one. Back to the story. Wednesday, 10 a.m. Darren walks into the Loomis building wearing a navy blazer, khaki pants, and a visitor's badge that says James Lennox, Candidate Client Services. He enters through the lobby that he redesigned 18 months ago, new marble floors, a digital welcome wall that displays the company's values in rotating text, integrity, excellence, people first. He has walked through this lobby 1,000 times. He has never walked through it wearing a visitor's badge. The badge changes everything. The security guard, a man named Tibbs who has greeted Darren by name every morning for 6 years, looks at the badge, looks at the sign-in sheet, and says, 14th floor, elevators on the right. Don't forget to sign out when you leave. He doesn't recognize Darren. Darren is wearing glasses, plain, non-prescription, the cheapest pair at the pharmacy, and has combed his hair differently and is wearing clothes that are deliberately mid-range. The disguise is not elaborate. It doesn't need to be. People don't see candidates. Candidates are temporary. They come, they interview, they leave, they become a data point in the ATS. The 14th floor is HR's domain. It's an open floor plan, desks arranged in clusters, motivational posters on the walls, a ping-pong table in the corner that Darren approved because the HR director said it would boost team morale. The ping-pong table is being used as a storage surface for file boxes. Nobody is playing ping-pong. Morale does not appear to have been boosted. A recruiter meets him at the reception desk. Her name is Marin. She is 28, polished, wearing a blazer that mirrors the company's brand colors, and carrying an iPad with what Darren assumes is his application. She shakes his hand, the firm, brief, impersonal handshake of someone who shakes 40 hands a week and has calibrated the gesture to communicate professionalism without warmth. James, welcome to Loomis. I'm Marin. I'll be conducting your initial screen today. Can I get you water or coffee? Water's fine. She leads him to a small conference room, one of the interview rooms on the 14th floor, glass-walled, equipped with a whiteboard and a table for two. The room is designed to be transparent. You can see in, the corridor can see you. Darren has walked past these rooms 100 times on his way to the elevator. He has never sat in one. The view from inside is different. You can see the corridor, and the corridor can see you, and the transparency that was designed to signal openness actually signals exposure. You are being watched. You are being evaluated. The glass walls say, "This is a performance," and the audience is everyone who walks past. On the walk to the interview room, Darren passes the waiting area. 3 other candidates are sitting in chairs along the wall, the specific chairs that the facilities team purchased for the reception area, ergonomic mesh with chrome arms, $92 apiece. The candidates are sitting in the particular posture of people waiting to be judged, upright, alert, phones put away, folders in their laps, eyes tracking every person who walks past with the question, "Are you the one who decides?" One of them is a woman in her early 30s, dark hair, wearing a blazer that she keeps adjusting at the shoulders, the adjustment of a person wearing clothing that is either new or borrowed, clothing chosen not for comfort but for the performance of belonging to a world she is trying to enter. Darren wants to stop. He wants to say, "I see you. I see the blazer and the folder and the posture and the way you're watching every door. I built this company for you, for the person who walks in with the fresh badge and the nervous handshake and the belief that if they present themselves correctly, someone on the other side of the desk will give them a chance." He doesn't stop. He's James Lennox. James Lennox doesn't know these things. James Lennox is one of them. Another candidate, another body in a chair, another entry in the ATS. Marin sits. She opens the iPad. She asks the first question. "So James, tell me about yourself and why you're interested in Loomis." Darren answers. He answers as Neil Keane would answer, Honestly, specifically, with 8 years of client services experience translated into 5 because the resume says 5 and the lie is part of the experiment. He talks about his interest in financial services, his experience with CRM platforms, his ability to build relationships with clients who are making significant financial decisions and who need a partner they can trust. Maren nods. She takes notes on the iPad. She asks the second question. What's your greatest weakness? Darren pauses. He sat on the other side of this question 1,000 times. In board interviews, in executive coaching sessions, in the strategic planning retreats where leaders practice vulnerability in a controlled environment. He knows the game. The game is name a weakness that is actually a strength, or name a weakness that you've already overcome. I'm too detail-oriented. I sometimes work too hard. I used to struggle with delegation, but I've developed systems to manage it. The question is not designed to reveal weakness. The question is designed to test whether the candidate can perform the ritual of corporate self-awareness without actually being vulnerable. I can be impatient with systems that don't work, he says. This is true. This is, in fact, the reason he is sitting in this room. Maren nods. She doesn't follow up. She doesn't ask what systems or what he means by don't work, or what he does when his impatience encounters a broken system. She scores the answer on the iPad. Darren can see the screen reflected in the glass wall, a numerical entry in a column, the reduction of a human statement to a digit, and moves to the next question. She asks the third question, and the fourth, and the fifth. Each question follows a script. Darren can see it on the iPad, reflected in the glass wall behind Maren, the structured interview template that the talent acquisition team uses for every first-round screen. The questions are standardized. The scoring is standardized. The conversation is not a conversation. It is an evaluation rubric, wearing the disguise of a conversation, the same way the careers page is a marketing document wearing the disguise of an invitation. At one point, Darren tries to deviate. Between question 3 and question 4, he says, "Can I tell you something about why I'm really interested in this role?" He wants to talk about client relationships, about the specific challenge of managing a client's money when the client is a 70-year-old widow whose husband managed everything and who is now, for the first time, making financial decisions alone and who needs not a portfolio manager but a partner who understands that the money isn't money, it's security, it's the ability to stay in the house and pay for the grandchildren's school and not worry about outliving the account. Maren looks up from the iPad. The look is polite. The look is brief. "We'll get to role-specific questions in the second round," she says. "For now, let's continue with the initial screen." The initial screen. The conversation that determines whether a candidate is human enough to proceed to the second round, except that the conversation is not measuring humanity, it is measuring compliance. Can the candidate answer the questions in the expected format? Can the candidate stay within the boundaries of the template? Can the candidate perform the dance without stepping on the choreography? Darren can. He's been performing corporate dances for 25 years. But the widow, the 70-year-old widow, who is the reason he built this company, who is the reason the words on the lobby wall say, "People first," the widow doesn't fit in the template. There's no field for her. There's no score for the thing that makes a great client services associate great, which is the ability to sit across from someone who is scared and make them less scared. The template measures keywords. It measures structure. It measures the performance of professionalism. It does not measure care. The interview lasts 22 minutes. Maren shakes his hand at the end, the same firm, brief handshake, and says, "We'll be in touch within 5 to 7 business days." "Can I ask you something?" Darren says. "Of course." "How many candidates make it past this round?" Maren hesitates. The hesitation is brief, a half-second pause in which she calculates what she's allowed to say and what she isn't. "We typically advance about 20% of first-round candidates to the second round. And the other 80%? They receive a notification. A 4-minute notification." Maren looks at him. The look is sharp, sharper than the handshake, sharper than the scripted questions. "I'm sorry?" "Nothing. Thank you for your time." He walks out. He takes the elevator to the 31st floor. He sits in his chair. If Untold Hearts has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. A few dollars a month keeps these stories coming. Links are in the description. Now, back to the story. The rejection email for James Lennox arrives 3 days later. Not 4 minutes this time. 3 days, because James Lennox made it to the human round. The email is slightly more personalized than the one Neil Keane received, but only slightly. Dear James, thank you for taking the time to interview with us. While we were impressed with your background, we've decided to move forward with candidates whose experience more closely aligns with our current needs. Whose experience more closely aligns. Darren has 5, technically 8, years of experience that directly, specifically, precisely aligns with the role's posted requirements. He was rejected by the algorithm for missing keywords. He was rejected by the human for what? He pulls the interview scorecard from the ATS. Marin scored him a 3.2 out of 5. The notes read, candidate was articulate and experienced but lacked enthusiasm for the role. Responses felt rehearsed, did not demonstrate strong cultural alignment. Cultural alignment. The phrase sits in Darren's chest like a stone. Cultural alignment, the subjective metric that lives at the bottom of every interview scorecard, the one that can't be measured or defined or appealed, the one that means this person didn't feel right, dressed up in corporate language. Darren, a man who founded the culture, who wrote the values statement, who stood on stage at every annual meeting and talked about integrity and excellence and people first, does not, according to a 28-year-old recruiter with a scripted interview template, demonstrate strong cultural alignment with the company he built. He calls the all hands, not the all hands, a leadership meeting, the senior team. 23 people in the boardroom on the 31st floor. VPs, directors, the heads of every department that touches the hiring process. The harbor view is behind him. The espresso machine is in the corner. The conference table cost $14,000. The chairs cost $800 apiece. The room, in its entirety, represents the kind of investment that the company makes in the people at the top. Leather and mahogany and glass, and the implicit message that the people who sit in these chairs matter enough to sit in comfort. Darren stands at the head of the table. He's not wearing a suit. He's wearing what James Lennox wore. The khaki pants, the navy blazer, the glasses, the visitor's badge still clipped to his lapel. He left it on deliberately. The badge says, James Lennox, Candidate, Client Services, and it hangs from his jacket like a price tag that the store forgot to remove, a reminder of what he was worth when the system evaluated him. Not enough. He has 2 printed emails in his hand, the Neil Keane rejection and the James Lennox rejection. 6 weeks ago, I applied for a job at this company, he says. I submitted a qualified application for a client services associate role. I met every posted requirement. I was rejected by our applicant tracking system in 4 minutes and 18 seconds. He puts the first email on the table. Then I submitted a second application, less qualified, generic cover letter, but stuffed with the keywords our algorithm wants. That application scored an 81. I got an interview within 2 hours. He puts the second email on the table. I sat in an interview room on the 14th floor for 22 minutes. I answered 5 scripted questions. I was scored a 3.2 out of 5. The recruiter noted that I lacked cultural alignment. I, the man who wrote the culture statement that's printed on the wall in the lobby, was told that I don't fit the culture. The room is silent. 23 faces processing the information with varying degrees of discomfort. The VP of Talent Acquisition, a man named Spector, who oversees the 14th floor operation and who championed the ATS purchase 2 years ago, is looking at the emails on the table the way a person looks at evidence in a trial they expected to win. Let me be specific about what happened, Darren says. Neil Keane, 8 years of experience, UMass finance degree, specific cover letter, scored a 64. Threshold is 70. He missed by 6 points. The 6 points were UMass Amherst instead of UMass Amherst Eisenberg School of Management. The algorithm flagged an incomplete credential. 2 employers instead of 1. The algorithm penalized job stability. And CRM software proficiency instead of the exact phrase client relationship management. The algorithm requires an exact keyword match. He lets this sit. 6 points, 3 technicalities. A qualified person, someone we should want, someone who could walk into this building and contribute from day one, was rejected because the software couldn't parse a school name, penalized a career that included more than one employer, and couldn't understand that CRM and client relationship management mean the same thing. He looks at Spectre. Spectre is not looking at him. Spectre is looking at the emails. Meanwhile, James Lennox, less experience, generic cover letter, but keyword optimized, scored an 81 and got an interview in 2 hours. The system didn't find the better candidate. The system found the candidate who speaks algorithm. And I promise you, the people who are best at gaming keyword filters are not the people who are best at serving our clients. Our hiring system is broken, not cracked, broken. We spent $430,000 last year on a process that rejects qualified candidates in 4 minutes, rewards keyword-stuffed applications over genuine ones, and evaluates cultural fit using a scripted template that cannot detect culture. We're not hiring the best people. We're hiring the people who game the system. He looks at Wendell. Wendell nods. Wendell knew this was coming. He's the one who showed Darren the 31% error rate. He's been waiting for the CEO to see what the data has been saying for 2 years. Here's what changes. Not next quarter, not after a task force, not after a consultant review. Now. The ATS threshold is eliminated. Every application that meets the basic posted requirements, degree, years of experience, gets reviewed by a human recruiter, not scored by software, read by a person. The software can sort and organize. The software does not decide. The scripted interview template is gone. Recruiters will have a framework, topics to cover, competencies to assess, but the conversation is a conversation. If a recruiter can't evaluate a candidate without reading questions off an iPad, the recruiter needs training, not a script. The cultural alignment metric is redefined. Culture is not a feeling. Culture is behavior. It's what you do, not what you seem like in a 22-minute interview behind a glass wall. Cultural assessment moves to the second round, conducted by the hiring manager and a team member in a working session where the candidate demonstrates how they think and collaborate, not how they answer, "What's your greatest weakness?" The careers page gets rewritten, not by marketing, by the people who actually do the jobs being posted. If a client services associate posting says, "We see people, not resumes," then the hiring process has to see people, not resumes. The words on the page and the process behind the page have to match, or the words are a lie and the page is an advertisement, and the candidates who believe it are being deceived. Every rejected application from the last 12 months gets re-reviewed by a human recruiter. Everyone. The 31% error rate means that approximately 4,000 qualified candidates were rejected by software. 4,000 people who deserved an interview and got a form email. Darren cannot hire all of them, but he can contact them. He can say, "We made a mistake. The system failed you. If you're still looking, we'd like to talk." "I got rejected by my own company in 4 minutes," Darren says. "That's how long we gave a qualified candidate. 4 minutes. That's less time than it takes to make a cup of coffee." And the email said, "After careful review." There was no careful review. There was no review at all. There was software, doing what software does, counting keywords and following rules without understanding what the words mean or what the rules cost. He picks up both emails. He holds them up. These are the 2 most important documents in this company right now. Not the quarterly report, not the investor deck. These. Because these tell us who we are when someone asks to join us, and who we are right now is a company that says people first on the wall and puts software first in the process. He sets them down. We fix this, not next quarter, now. 3 months later, the numbers. Time to fill, 67 days down to 39. The human review takes longer per application, but the pipeline moves faster because the right candidates aren't being filtered out at the gate. The recruiters complained initially. Reading applications takes time, time that the ATS was supposed to save, time that is now being spent on the thing that the ATS was supposed to automate. But the complaints faded as the results came in. The candidates who make it to the interview stage are better. The interviews are more productive. The offers that go out are accepted at higher rates because the candidates who received them feel like they were seen, like someone at the other end of the process actually read their cover letter and noticed the specific things they said and responded to the specific person they are, rather than the algorithmic profile the system generated. Application to interview conversion, 3% up to 11. 8 times more candidates are reaching the interview stage. Spector, the VP of Talent Acquisition who championed the ATS, initially resisted. He presented cost projections. He cited the vendor contract. He argued that the algorithm reduces bias by standardizing evaluation. Darren listened. Then he said, "The algorithm standardized the evaluation of a school name spelling. It standardized the rejection of a career that included 2 employers instead of 1. It standardized the elimination of a candidate who used a synonym instead of an exact phrase. That's not reducing bias. That's replacing human bias with mechanical stupidity, and the mechanical stupidity costs us $200,000 a year." Spector was quiet after that. Not convinced, quiet. The quiet of a man recalculating. Offer acceptance rate, 51% up to 74. Candidates who are treated like people during the hiring process are more likely to say yes when the offer comes. This is not a revelation. This is not a breakthrough in organizational psychology. This is common sense, the kind of common sense that a $200,000 algorithm was supposed to improve upon and instead replaced with a system that treats people like data points and is then surprised when the data points decline to be employed by a company that treated them like data points. The 4,000 re-reviewed candidates yielded 612 who were still seeking employment. Of those, 309 were contacted. The contact was not a form email. Each one was a personal email from a recruiter, a real email written by a human that said, "We reviewed your application again. We believe we made an error the first time. If you're still interested, we'd like to have a conversation." Of those 309, 147 came in for interviews. Of those, 83 were hired. 83 people who were rejected by software and saved by a CEO who applied to his own company and discovered that the door was locked from the inside. One of the 83 is a woman named Portia Desmond. She is 34 years old. She applied to Loomis 11 months ago for a client services associate position. She has 7 years of experience. She has a degree from Northeastern. She was rejected in 4 minutes and 12 seconds, 6 seconds faster than Darren, because her cover letter used the phrase customer success instead of client relationship management, and because she listed her degree as BS Finance rather than Bachelor of Science in Finance, DeMoore McKim School of Business. And the algorithm, in its infinite literal-mindedness, decided that these abbreviations constituted insufficient credentials. Portia was the woman in the blazer. The one Darren saw in the waiting area on the day of his interview as James Lennox, the woman adjusting her jacket at the shoulders, the one wearing clothing chosen for the performance of belonging. She was there that day for a second-round interview that the algorithm had, by some accident of keyword density, allowed. She didn't get the job. The interviewer scored her a 3.4, cultural alignment, uncertain. She went home and applied to 3 more companies and was rejected by 2 of them and accepted by 1, a smaller firm in Worcester that paid $12,000 less than Loomis, but that called her by name during the interview and followed up with a human email within 24 hours. When Loomis contacted her 11 months later, she was still at the Worcester firm. She was stable. She was not looking. But the email, the personal email, the one that said, "We believe we made an error," was different from every hiring email she had ever received. It was honest. It admitted fault. It asked for a conversation, not a performance. She came in. She met with the hiring manager, not a recruiter, not an algorithm, a person who manages the team she'd be joining and who spent 45 minutes talking about the work, the clients, the team, the actual daily reality of the role. No greatest weakness questions, no cultural alignment rubric. A conversation. She started at Loomis on a Monday. She walked through the lobby, the marble floors, the digital wall, the rotating values, integrity, excellence, people first. She walked past the security desk where Tibbs checked her new badge and said, "Welcome to Loomis, Portia." Her name, first day, first words. Darren was in the lobby when she walked in. He didn't introduce himself, not yet, not on the first day, not when the first day should belong to her and to the team and to the work. But he saw her. He saw the blazer, a different one this time, new, not borrowed. He saw the posture, the same upright, alert, ready posture. He saw the badge, Portia Desmond, Client Services Associate. 11 months ago, the system said she didn't align. Now she's here. The system was wrong. The system is being fixed, and the woman who was rejected in 4 minutes and 12 seconds is sitting at a desk on the 9th floor, serving clients, building relationships, doing the work that the algorithm decided she wasn't qualified to do. Maren is still a recruiter. She wasn't fired. Darren was clear about that. The system failed, not the people operating the system. Maren was given a script and told to follow it. She followed it. The failure is upstream, in the design of the process, in the purchase of software that prioritizes speed over accuracy, in the assumption that a $200,000 algorithm can replace human judgment. Maren now conducts interviews without a script. She struggles with it initially. The freedom of an unscripted conversation is disorienting for someone trained to follow a template. But she's learning. She's developing the ability to listen rather than score, to follow a candidate's story rather than a rubric sequence, to evaluate a person by what they say rather than how closely what they say matches a predetermined answer key. Wendell framed the 2 rejection emails. They hang in the HR department, not in Darren's office, but on the 14th floor, where the recruiters sit, where the applications come in, where the 4-minute emails go out. The emails hang next to a new sign that Wendell wrote and that Darren approved. Every application is a person. Every person deserves more than 4 minutes. Darren walks past the sign every Tuesday. He comes to the 14th floor once a week now, not to inspect, not to manage, but to sit with the recruiters and read applications. He reads 10 applications per visit. He reads them the way the algorithm cannot, with attention, with context, with the understanding that a resume is a translation of a life, and that translations lose something in the process, and that the only way to find what was lost is to read carefully, slowly, the way you read a letter from someone who matters. He reads about the woman from Springfield who worked 3 jobs while finishing her degree, and whose resume shows a gap that the algorithm would flag as inconsistent employment, and that a human reader recognizes as the gap of a person who is raising 2 children alone and finishing school at night, and who is, by any reasonable measure, exactly the kind of person you want on your team, because she has already demonstrated the one thing that no interview question can measure: the ability to keep going when everything says stop. He reads about the man from Worcester who spent 8 years in the military and whose resume lists skills in language that the algorithm doesn't recognize. Logistics coordination instead of supply chain management, personnel leadership instead of team management, tactical communication instead of stakeholder engagement. The man speaks the language of service. The algorithm speaks the language of corporate. They are not the same language. They should be. He reads 10 applications. He makes notes. He passes the notes to the recruiter sitting next to him, and the recruiter calls the candidates, and the calls begin the way every interaction with Loomis should begin, and the way Darren started 23 years ago with Inez, with a name. Spoken like they have been waiting to meet them. The visitor's badge is in a frame on his desk. Not the 31st floor desk, a new desk, smaller, on the 14th floor, where Darren now spends Tuesday mornings reading applications. The desk faces the corridor. Through the glass wall, he can see the waiting area. He can see the candidates in their chairs, the blazers, the folders, the posture. He can see the people who are waiting to be seen. He sees them now, not because he's a better CEO than he was 6 weeks ago, because he sat in a chair on the other side of the glass wall and felt what it feels like to be a data point, to be scored, evaluated, reduced to a number, and rejected by a system that says people first on the wall and puts software first in the process. It takes longer than 4 minutes to see a person. It should. Thank you for watching this story. If it reminded you that the distance between people first and a 4-minute rejection email is the distance between what companies say and what companies do, share it. Subscribe to Untold Hearts for more stories about the systems that are supposed to work for us and the people who fix them when they don't. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been rejected by a system that never saw you?